Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up? I got this super cool blog automation for you today. Honestly, no joke, like this thing is a freaking beast. It is basically designed to take a keyword or a news article, do all your research for you, and write a blog. Not only that, it generates all of the images for the article using the new ChatGPT image model. And at the end, you get something that looks kind of like this with all these images tailored to your specific style. You get like an entire blog article complete with sections. You get a whole bunch of research done for you, so you know this is accurate. This thing searches the web. And at the end of it, you get something like pretty beautiful that you have total control over, basically the way it writes, the types of images that it creates, and kind of the general style of basically everything here you have complete control over. And as a little bonus, I even threw in this like little keyword scraper, which basically kind of like scrapes trending keywords in your niche and stores them in a database for you to create your blog content with. So if you want to get a system like this to follow along, all of my resources are available inside the school community. You just come into the classroom. This one's at the bottom here. It says blog automation. You can scroll down. You can grab the N8N agent here. You can go ahead and download this and then just kind of pop in to N8N, go to import from file and navigate to where this is and go ahead and click open. And literally in just a second, like this entire beastly automation is going to pop in for you. So today I just kind of want to give you an overview of the system, how it works. We're going to run the system. I'm going to break down like the individual pieces for you. And let's get this thing going. So I'm just actually going to start with this little keyword scraper first, because I find it's best to have some sort of like basis for the article, right? And what's a better place to base it on than what's like trending and what's current right now? This is like a really simple little scraper. Basically, it's just designed to scrape keywords based off of your niche and then store them inside of this Airtable database. And you can see we kind of scraped all of these different keywords here, and then it gives us the search volume, the competition index, and even the trend. And so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to clear all of these out so we can kind of see this thing live fresh from the start. And I'm just going to go ahead and click test workflow. And so basically what happens is we're just setting the keyword to search for, like a Google search or whatever. We're searching for trends. And the keyword I set is just AI agents, right? And so this is just coming in. It's like scraping the keywords from Google Trends here. This is using a Rapid API's like API for Google Keyword Insights. And then it's just going to go ahead and it's going to filter these out to make sure the trend is greater than 0. So we want to make sure, obviously, this is actually trending. And then actually, this is just looking for competition levels. We want to make sure the competition levels are medium or low, because we don't want to be writing content in a high competition niche. And then it's just basically going to store all that information inside of this database. And so you can see here, we basically have like all of these new keywords that we can kind of create content from. And the blog automation is basically like set up to pull from the highest trending keyword. You can see it's at the top, type of AI agent, and write the article based off of that. And then at the end, basically, it's just going to set the status to, blog created or blog posted. And so, after that, it's just going to go ahead and it's going to go down this list and write the next highest trending one the next time you want to write the automation. So now we have our keyword set here. We can just go ahead and we basically want to run this from keyword. So I'm just going to go ahead and test the workflow, and then I'll walk you through it. If you want, I do also have another way to run this. It's just from news sources. If you followed any of my content before, I'll leave a video up here where you can kind of like figure out how to get current events and news sources into the same database. I have this here in the social posts, and it creates kind of like headlines and source summaries and things like that. You can see we have a headline and a little summary, and then even if you want, you can go to the article. This is part of a different flow. I'm not going to cover this in detail today, but I have a couple different ways to do this. And again, I'll leave this up top for you. And also this is still available inside the school community. And so today we're just going to be running this from a keyword, but basically you can see we have these two routes. And basically whether you run it from a keyword or from a particular news article, essentially once you kind of like pull that record in from the database, the system kind of runs the same. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through here. And basically we just have a couple nodes in the beginning, right? So the first thing we're doing is we're just searching the Airtable database for literally every single record. We just want to pull in all of the records. And then we have this code node here. So what this code node is doing is this basically just looking through every single record, and it's pulling out the one with the highest trend. And you can see here, remember, we looked at this already. It's type of AI agent. This is the one with the highest trend data. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and we're going to research this to get more information to like enrich the data. We can't just write like an entire blog article based off of type of AI agent. Like that's not enough to go on. We want to have some research. We want some statistics and things like that. And so this is pretty cool. This has gone ahead here, and basically it's just generated a query for a search agent. And so we're just telling this thing that we want to grab some recent statistics and data on the keyword, some case studies and real world examples, some expert opinions and quotes, and some competing content analysis and common questions. So this gives us like a really wide variety and kind of like breadth of information to pull into our article. So you can see this already getting really powerful. We're just kind of researching any information that we can find for type of AI agent. And from there, this little agent here basically just performs the research for us on the internet. If you can go in here, we just have like a really kind of basic prompt. Just says you're a research agent in a multi-agent blog creation system. Your task is to gather concise, high-quality information for a keyword using the provider research and output it in a condensed format. And then some rules for it, right? And you can see here that the output, we have all of this research that it did that we have here kind of in our output section. If you're not super familiar with N8N, honestly, this is probably not the best tutorial to start with. It's like a pretty advanced system. But on the left here, you basically have the input to the node. Then you have all your user like prompting and messaging, like what do you want this particular node to do? And then this is the output on the right here from that node itself. And so that's just kind of how the system works. And this kind of carries on through from node to node to node throughout the system. So from there, we just wanted to kind of like organize the information before we pass it on to the writer. So this is just organizing the information. It's kind of like grabbing everything. It's grabbing the title and the research that it did. You can see here, basically we have this crazy input. And if we even look at the prompt, the user message, we basically have, a little bit of instruction of how to format it. And then all the way down here, again, in this other user message, we have just the primary keyword, which again is our type of AI agent, and then all the research that it's done. And so we just wanted to format this in a way that we can understand. And so it wrote a title for us for the article, understanding the different types of AI agents and their impact on enterprises. Then it tells us how many sections we should have. So now the rest of the blog writer knows how many sections it needs to create for us. Then some more information about the primary keywords, any secondary keywords that would be good to include in the article for SEO and research, and any external links here. And then just some additional instructions, like highlight the growth trend and consumer acceptance of AI agents while discussing their types and applications. So basically, we just have all this information now. And I found that you could just send this off to the writer and it's going to do like a pretty decent job. But the AI agents and LLMs can only handle like so much information and so much context. So it's actually really helpful to break this out into smaller chunks. And so I always want to like generate an outline first before moving on to the rest of it. So this is just another little model here, just messaging in LLM. This is using ChatGPT and OpenAI. You can basically go ahead and click the plus over here to access this. You can type in OpenAI to do it this way. Or you could use, like I have, this next identify topic one here is just a basic LLM chain, which allows you to actually select the model that you want to use for this. So here I'm using ChatGPT, but if you wanted, you could swap this out for Claude or something else. And you'll actually see when I go into the writer here for the write article, I'm actually using Claude for this because I found that I like the writing style better. Let me move back here. From here, we've generated the outline. And so you can see here, we basically just broken this down to sections. So understanding the different types of AI and their impact on enterprises. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries, et cetera, et cetera. This comprehensive guide explores the different types of AI agents, their applications, and the potential impact on business. Then there's an introduction section, and then goes ahead and lists out some more sections for us to create content on. Now from there, this node is a little bit extra, and this is where the system gets really customizable. So this little identify topic node is basically for the image generation process. And my thinking was, I've been working with a lot of clients and around like blog writing and social media and things like this. And client brands are really important. And I wanted to find a way to create a system that would allow them flexibility in their content. And so their visuals don't always look the same for every single piece, but there are some unifying characteristics. And so this topic identifier is a way to do that by basically saying there are 5 different types of blog articles that this person can create. Now stay with me here. This could be an innovation topic. This could be a news topic. It could be a human-centered topic like AI's impact on behavior, etiquette, or psychology. This could be an educational topic like a guide, tutorial, or like a product topic about a new feature announcement or a product update. So basically what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a different visual style for every single one of these different types of content. And so this would allow the client's like brand to be pretty expansive and kind of like have like different looks. In this case, it would be 5 different looks. But then again, it would also allow them to be recognizable. So every time they create a piece on innovation, like the visuals, the images that get created are the same style of image, and the same goes for news. Every time they create a news piece, the style of images is the same as all the other news pieces. So it gives them kind of consistency, but also a lot of variety if they're posting frequently. So here, what this has done is this basically just fed this in the little content, the outline that we had before, and this determined that this is an educational piece of content. And then so from there, we're searching our Airtable database to actually get the style guide for educational types of imagery. And so if we come back in here, what you can see, I have this little brand guidelines, and we have some tone of voice guidelines up here, which we'll use later on to define the writing style. But if we come into educational here, you can see we have image style and the style prompt. So what N8N is doing is it's looking for the word educational inside image style, and then it's going to grab this style prompt here. So you can see the image style is educational, and we have create a minimal but futuristic whiteboard style graphic. Use clean, precise line drawings like digital sketch notes on a bright or slightly gradient text background. Add subtle holographic glows around key points like text textures like grid lines or circuits, and occasional animated looking callouts or arrows. Keep it highly organized, logical, and visually explainable at a glance, perfect for tutorial or how-to content. So basically every single image in this article is going to be unified around this look, this aesthetic. And then from there, you can see the second node is called Get Brand Guidelines. It's doing the same thing. It's just grabbing this brand guidelines, where I basically have some tone of voice guidelines like key characteristics and vocabulary and word choice, some punctuation and things like that. So again, if you're a client or if this is you personally, you can go ahead and you can adapt all of this stuff to your needs. This is totally customizable. You can change the tone of voice guidelines. You can change the image styling or just the style prompts if you think these, styles are relevant to you. And then from here, basically, this is just doing like a little bit of cleanup work. I'm not going to break this down in too much detail. All this is basically doing is just kind of identifying the different lines of the article. Basically, you can go in here. I'll just show you really quickly. Now you can see this is broken up line by line by line by line. So this way, the system kind of can identify all these different pieces and put them back together. It can filter out the subheadings so that we can basically have, know where the headings and subheadings and kind of body text is. And then here, this is just setting the working section. So you can see this is feeding in 7 different sections, from the blog, right? Or from the outline. And so this is just going to go ahead and it's basically writing these sections one by one. So that way you can put them back together later. And then from there, basically we want to write the article. And you can see if we zoom in here that we're feeding in 7 different items into this. And so what's cool about this little agent here is that this is basically just going to go section by section. And it's going to write content for each section individually so that, again, we can stitch them back together. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to have some formatting at the end. Like we saw in this preview, right? We want to have an image, then we want to have the headline, like the title of the section. We want to have the body copy and then another image, the title of the section, the body copy. And so we have to break it up in order to sort of like put it back together again, if that makes sense. So I always like to start with the system prompt here because I think this is usually the most important, although here I kept it really simple. It just says, you're a helpful, intelligent writing assistant. And then I said, do not output anything other than the article, so no system messages. Because we definitely don't want anything in here that's like, hey, like I made you a cool introduction, because that's like not freaking helpful. Okay, so the next thing that this has is a user message, right? This says the following is an outline for an award-winning article. Your task is to write one section and one section only. The one marked by a little arrow. Tone of voice should be 50% Spartan and a little bit casual. And then basically I've just set the working section that's coming from over here. And this will essentially iterate through every single section and it'll write a full-fledged kind of chunk of the article per section as it comes through. And then here's where I feed it those tone of voice guidelines. It just says incorporate any relevant parts of these additional tone of voice guidelines. So I'm basically leaving this up for the system to interpretate like which parts of these are relevant. This is honestly probably too long for tone of voice guidelines. And I think I'm probably going to slim this down. I actually have a more slimmed down version somewhere. It's just not in here yet. But again, if I want to change this and I find that somewhere else, I can just go ahead and I can just update this field here inside of Airtable. And the next time this system runs, it's just going to pull in those new brand guidelines. So you can see how powerful and customizable this is. And if you change or your clients change over time, you just have to go in and update those sections and basically the whole system will accommodate the new changes. So if you look at the output here from the writer, we basically have 7 different text sections, right? And these just represent the different sections of the article. From here, I ran this through this little summarizer. And basically the reason I did this was just because I wanted to give the image prompt generator less to work with. So the next node is basically going to generate prompts for ChatGPT to generate images. And it just didn't need to give it all of this text. It was just too much. So I basically just fed it kind of the content of each section and just asked it to summarize it in just kind of like a few words, right? just to keep it really nice and short. And so after that's gotten summarized, I pass this to an image prompt generator. And now you can see here, again, I'll start with the system message because I think this is important. So this part took me a little bit of work to get right. And so again, the idea being that for every image in this article, it's going to fit the same style, right? But I did want the agent to be able to interpret what the subject of the image that's generated is, right? So the style is always going to be the same. It's going to be consistent across the board. But of course, each section of the article is going to be about something slightly different. So basically what we're actually showing, like the subjects or the environment or whatever it is inside of the image, should change every time. So it just says you're an AI generating vivid, visually engaging image prompts for a specific section of an article. And I worked with ChatGPT back and forth to kind of get this prompt. And I tested it and it said, this is working, this isn't working. It's not consistent enough across the board. We need to have, more room for interpretation for the agent to determine the subjects, et cetera. And so I love working with ChatGPT or Claude back and forth to kind of create these prompts because it really helps me kind of focus and streamline what we're talking about here. And so I just said, here's the style guide for the article. And then I just fed in the style guide. Basically, that was coming from that Airtable node, right? And you can see it here in the output. It just says create a minimal but futuristic whiteboard style graphic. Use clean, precise line drawings, right? We already looked at this. So the next thing it just says is every output must start with the style guide. So I found that was the best way to keep the images all consistent. You must strictly follow the visual style described. This is mandatory, not optional. Then this is kind of the second task. Your task is to read the blog section content, interpret its meaning, and decide what specific scene, subject, or action to depict while fully applying the assigned style guide to how the image should look. So now you kind of understand the concept of this. We want to pair the style with a separate image, with a separate subject for every image. And then here I just plugged in the article section and says, do not output any double or single quotes or special characters. I found that sometimes it was trying to add quotation marks inside the prompt. And when I fed this into the image generator, it was causing an error. And so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't outputting quotes because it messes with the JSON formatting. And so this next part gets a little bit tricky here, but it's not so bad once you kind of understand what's going on. So typically what I have been doing, as you saw before, is every single one of these basically just says 7 items, 7 items, 7 items, 7 items, right? It's just passing all 7 items through every single node. And so before I switched to the new ChatGPT image model, I was using the OpenAI kind of image generator node. You can go in here. If you go into OpenAI, you can see you have generated image here. And basically this generates an image, but this was using DALL-E. The new image model is so much better than DALL-E. There was no reason for me to use this, so I wanted to swap it out. But this node here is actually like way more capable than what I'm using, which is just like an HTTP request. So it's just a difference in the way the nodes are structured. And basically here, this doesn't have like a timeout. Right? So this can run through all 7 images. And basically once they're done, and I can grab the URLs for them and I can move on. Because I had to do this with an HTTP request because the ChatGPT node inside of Edit doesn't have the new image model integrated. Basically, I had to feed every item through one at a time and loop through them. And so basically this goes through and this creates an image with the new ChatGPT model for every single one of the prompts. It creates the image. It sets this to base64. This is just setting the variable because the model outputs in base64 format, which is like, I'll show it to you. It's just like this ridiculous, nobody understands this. This is what base64 JSON looks like. Like, look at this code. Look at all these 8. What does this mean? Nobody knows. So this is just setting this, and then I'm converting the file to a string file, which is basically kind of like a binary file that we can sort of like recognize inside the system. So what this is doing, this loop, is this just going through prompt by prompt and generating a single image at a time because the HTTP node has like a 100-second timeout limit. And so if we're generating 5, 6, 7 images, we're going to hit that limit and it just times out and you get an error. So we have to loop through them one at a time. From there, this part was actually kind of annoying, to be honest with you, but this is how the system has to work. So the next thing we do is we upload all of the images into Google Drive. And the reason that we do this is because we needed a kind of like live, publicly accessible, like fast reacting way to store the images later inside of the Airtable database. And so I'll just come in here really quick to show you the final output inside of here. And if we scroll down, you can see we basically stored all of the images inside of Airtable as well, just so we have them for reference for later. And I wasn't able to do this using kind of like publicly accessible links coming from Imager. The catch here is that In order to actually properly insert the image into your HTML, so we can have this nice looking HTML, basically the image URL needs to be available on a public site, and it wasn't working with just the Google Drive links. So we actually had to upload this to Imager. Everybody's probably familiar with Imager, but I had to do this using an HTTP request. The API and the access keys and all that are totally free. So just go to Imager, create an account, grab the client secret and all that stuff, and you can go ahead and set this up. So basically, this is storing the images in Google Drive so that we can save them in Airtable later. And it's also uploading them to Imager. So there's a live, like always available public URL for us to insert into the HTML. And then we're just setting all of that information here. So once it's done with all 7 of these images, it aggregates them all together. You can see we have all of the URLs on Imager and all of the links to Google Drive here. Then we're splitting them all back out. We're splitting the URLs out and we're splitting the Google Drive links out. And then what we're doing is we're just merging them together here, all the way back here with the written article. So now we have all the pieces to sort of stitch them back together, right? We have the fully written article broken up by section. You can see we have all 7 items here. And then we have all of the image URLs coming from this split node. And we're just merging them back together so that we can actually create the article. And basically here, this little code, this is just a set variable node. If you've worked with N8N, you're familiar with this. You can come in here, you just type set, and this is just an edit fields node. And basically, this is the same as like set variables in make.com. We just want to set this. And so we basically have the header with the JSON URL and the text for the section, right? And this basically is just going to iterate through one by one. If we go into the JSON here, you can see we have the image with this URL here, and we have the copy for the article. And then again, we have a new image and the new copy for the article. And then we're basically just aggregating all of this data together to create the full-length article. And our blog is written in Markdown format, so we're just using this Markdown to HTML node to convert Markdown to HTML, which is what most like blog sites like WordPress are going to use. So you're just going to want to upload the HTML directly. And then these last couple things here are just like a little bit of formatting. When I was kind of trying to preview this, I just ran into some issues with the formatting that was ugly. There were some new lines there. There were literally the characters that said like /n, like you can see this character. So I wanted to substitute these out with these line breaks, which is the proper HTML formatting for line breaks. I think it just has to do with how this node, the Markdown to HTML node inside of N8N was converting things. But, you know, I had to try it out, and this was a lot of trial and error, honestly, to get this to look right. From here, I'm just setting the style. And so basically when ChatGPT was outputting these images, they were huge. They're 1024 by 1024. It's too big for a blog. I don't need it that big. And there's like a lot of extra padding around the margins on the sides here. So these images were about twice this size, and the text here was like spanning the entire width of the screen, and it was too much. It was ugly. And so I worked with ChatGPT again. I'm not a coder. I don't really know how HTML works that well. And I basically said, like, can I center these images and can I add more padding? And it basically told me just to give these kind of style guides here. This is just general, like, overall information for the entire HTML. And so this kind of just sets the tone. So we create the width down to 50%. We align this left and right. And then I just changed the padding width to 1,000 pixels on either side, right? And the padding here is 20. And then we're just inserting the data from this previous node. And you can see here, we have this giant string of HTML now that's becoming our article. And again, once I set the style, I was getting some more weird new lines in there. They were ugly, is what it is. I had to remove them again just with one more little set node here. And I'm just replacing all the backslashes ends with just a space because we didn't need them. Cool. So if we come back inside our database, you can see we have basically our keyword here, type of AI agent. And if we open this up, we have all the blog copy in HTML format. And if we scroll down here again, we have all the images for the blog. And so what we can do is we can just copy everything that's inside the blog copy, and we can go into something like this. It's just HTML viewer, and I can delete everything in here, and I can go ahead and paste this in. And now you can see we have this really pretty blog that's created just for us. And if we go ahead, preview full page, now you can see what this blog article is going to look like inside, you know, your system like WordPress or something like this. And you can see we have this full introduction. Like, AI agents are game changers, folks. They're revolutionizing how business operates, communicate, and serve customers, and they're just getting started. So if you don't like the writing style or whatever, you can change this. You can tell, I hate when the AI says things like game changers, but you can go ahead and adjust the writing prompts to say, like, don't say game changers, or sometimes I like to say, like, here's the kicker. Nobody talks like that. Or just adjust the brand guidelines here for your tone of voice guidelines. But then we can come back in, you can see we have all these really nice images. Now, like the new image model is like really great at text. Like I'm blown away with how awesome it is, honestly, if you can't tell. But then we kind of go ahead and we break down all the different types of AI agents, the reactive agents, limited memory agents, theory of mind agents, self-aware agents. So this is really cool. Again, this is just based off of all the research that our system did for us, right? And then we have market growth and consumer willingness. The AI agent market isn't just growing, it's exploding. We're witnessing a major shift that's transforming how business operates and how consumers interact with technology. And then it goes ahead and like lists some actual numbers. And it says it's skyrocketing from 5 billion in 2024 to 47 billion by 2030. The market is growing 44%. Enterprise adoption increased 270% in the last 24 months. So we have all these really cool stats that we pulled in. We talk about the impact on operational efficiency. We can talk about some specific examples like JP Morgan implementing contract intelligence, Walmart, Blue Cross using AI agents, Bank of America's virtual assistant. So this is like a really thought out, well-researched article along with some great images. And so you can see how powerful this tool can be if you want to use this. And so if you want to get access to this entire system and basically all my other resources, come in here, join my school community. I'll leave a link in the description. You can see we have a whole bunch of courses for you to access. If you want to check out the course on how I created an entire social media hub, I'll leave a link up here and I'll see you over there.